First speaker is Professor Tong Mahn. He's Professor, Department of Landscape Architecture and Rural System Engineering, College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, Seoul National University, Republic of South Korea. He has quite a significant provenance, but we're going to just short it. 2007 to 2009, Chair of the Advisory Committee on Urban Parks, Seoul City. 2008-2009, President, Korea Green Roof and Infrastructure Association. 2006-2010, IFLA Vice President for Asia Pacific region. Please welcome Professor Tong.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for the organizing committee for inviting me and giving me this nice chance to talk to you. And yesterday and today, I've seen many excellent examples of green roofs and green walls, and sort of I'm in an illusion that we have covered up quite much of the built environment all over the world. And I'm going to show you some examples from Korea. And then finally, I would like to discuss how we can make ourselves and also our future generations happier with probably our professional jobs, making green walls, green roofs, so on. A quotation, maybe you are familiar. I'll talk about briefly some green infrastructure legacies in Korea, and then show you more examples of green roofs and green walls in Korea, and then discuss about happiness, so on. Korea, far up there, we have a population 50 million, very high population density. That means we have not enough green spaces, green infrastructure in large urban areas. We have good examples of some nice green areas, gardens, or so on. And the Seoul city was a totally new planned national capital city since late 14th century. And it was situated according to the Feng Shui geomancy theory, and it protects the city from very harsh winter wind from northwest. And it had very nice blue infrastructure also. But we had quite some green infrastructure during colonial period, and also the terrible Korean War period. We tried to put green belt to limit the growth of urban areas, and it worked quite well, but quite many landowners suffered because we had quite strict limitations or regulation on private development in the green belts. We have a nice stream restoration project, which is now is a excellent blue infrastructure in the middle of Seoul city, which has 10 million people. So we had this double-deck urban expressway over covered up stream, and we had dismantled the roads and daylighted the stream. It was quite costly, but very well visited. And we have eco corridors, and environmental impact statement requires to put such eco bridges in many places when they build roads and so on. Examples. Quite new one being built at the moment. Y-green, ADHD, and so on. We are very familiar with these things, so I skip. Seoul, Korea. Very high density development compared to Sydney. Some typical residential area. They live in some 20-story high or 30-story high apartments in Seoul compared to quite lower density in Australia. So maybe, it's my only guess, I do not have the number calculation, but total roof area may be greater in Korea, but per capita roof area and per capita runoff and so on may be bigger in Australia. So you'd better have more green roof in Australia. This part is very familiar to us, so I just skip. Rapid growth, green business. They do these sort of researches, justifying green roof. Amenity value, habitat, so on. And they love building with the green roof, green wall. And one of my master's degree students did a research showing photos of just plain screen wall in a cafe, restaurant, and the grilled screen. And many more people loved the green screen. And one of my graduate students studied eye movement recording system, recording the eye movement and the minutes or seconds, how long they put the eyes on some places in the photo that shows green roof with some buildings around and also some green areas on the urban streets. And obviously, she found the more they more see the green areas, green spots in the photos. Some examples of earlier green roofs in Korea. We have a nice green roof support system, subsidy system in Seoul City, which began in 2002, and they support up to half the cost of planning, design, and construction. And we have some selection criteria, and we would like to put the green roofs and support the green roofs in areas where they have less urban parks, green areas in prefectures in Seoul City. And the cost they support, since 2002, we had put this much money, Seoul City budget, to support the green roofs. And the achievement is, since 2002, 2013, about this much area, and we put this much money. And we have a Green Roof Association in Korea, and we began National Green Roof Award in year 2009. Very early example. Hospital rooftop, university rooftop. We've seen so many of these, so I go fast. This one is quite recent one. Many activities and the studies and environmental education on top of those green roofs. So we have the award, and September 25th, last month, we had this year award ceremony. And the first year, we had this award giving, and the award winner, one of the award winners. And this one won the gold medal at the Shanghai Green Roof Congress in China. Some of you may have been there. 2010 award winner, one of them. Underneath of this garden is a parking garage. And for the high-rise apartments, they used to put all the garage underneath and make the gardens on top of them. So nowadays, the real estate market is quite competitive in Korea, especially in Seoul, and they try to make this garage rooftop gardens very beautiful and attractive, providing many nice spaces for kids, elderly people, so on. And they hope to sell their real property well on the market. This is new Seoul City Hall, new building. And inside this glass wall, we have the huge 1,500 square meter, 7 stories high green wall. Golf clubhouse. Another apartment complex. Again, underneath is parking garage. Even they have a kids' pool there. And the previous sports stadium, it was quite old, and they decided to remove, and they built this nice new design plaza, exhibition hall there. And they had international competition for the architecture. And architect award who won the competition was Zaha Hadid. And it has nice green roof plan. So this is this year Grand Prix Award winner. It has 9,000 or more green roof area. Some parts are 30 degrees, quite sloped. And they tested it against some 50 meter per second wind. So they have this more than 40,000 plates on top. The plate size is 50 centimeter by 50 centimeter. Another huge project. This is a kind of a Canberra city in Korea, which is a new national capital city, kind of. 170 some 50 kilometers south of Seoul City. Total area is this big, and in an international competition for the city plan, this circular city plan won the prize with quite big green area in the middle and the circular city around. And the government section, government offices are on this section. And the plan was quite ambitious with the very huge connected green roof area. But later they revised it. And it looks like a snake, quite long green roof connected the buildings. First stage, and the total length will be this long. And the parts completed up to this year. We have some similar products and technologies used in Korea for those green roofs, green walls. Very similar to yours, maybe. Just images. You cannot read Korean. Inside, they put moss, and they can use it quite various ways. Make a green wall or just decoration things. On other companies, different kind of product and technology. Well, our business is supposed to make a good environment and make people happier. With these kinds of technology and products and projects in Korea, I wonder how happier we Korean people are now. Obviously, since the Korean War, which was a terrible war, after which I came to Sydney to study for 2 years in here. And at the time, in the year 1977, the per capita income in Korea was about $1,000 US. Can you imagine the life in such a country? Now it's about $23,000 US or something. People should be much happier in this sort of environment compared to 100 years or 60 years ago. But many statistics and social studies show Korean people are not so happy. The suicide rate is very high, and people live in quite much pressure or stress. And it shows that Korea is much lower in their percentage of very happy people, 10 or less, compared to other country people who some 30, 40, even 50% of people say they are very happy. How come? Well, some social or economic study shows South Korea is where it is. This one is several years ago statistics. Australia somewhere. So it shows that with the rapid economic growth, probably the money is not enough to make people, obviously, and Korea belongs to one of those examples. And Richard Easterlin's paradox says that when the per capita income in a country goes about 20,000 per capita or more money may not make the people happy as before. So if Korea is now past that line or that point, then making more money may not make the people happier. And In the United States, during last 40 years, the study shows that the genuine progress index, which includes social aspects or environmental aspects, they didn't make much progress, or the genuine progress index a bit decreased during the 40 years, even when they have doubled the car ownership or the size of the house doubled, so on. So what does that mean for Korean people or our profession in the green business? Another study shows Australia, New Zealand, somewhere, USA here. This is Gallup survey last year. Korea is far down here. So it shows that you compare the income or economic status in your society, and you are not happier when other people got much richer and you stay there. And the interesting study shows that more of people say they will be happier in this situation rather than the upper one. And it says adaptation, which means buying new car, nicer car, or getting much bigger house will not make you happy quite long time. You may get adapted in a few weeks, few months, few years' time, and you will not get any happiness, enjoyment from them, the luxurious goods. But we may enjoy better environment quite long time. So we are in this green business, and through our professionalism, we should and we can make the people happier than the luxury goods, I hope. And we know this. We have this quite terrible environmental problem, borderless problem. It's not a problem any other country somewhere, but it's a global problem, and we should do something. And and I wonder what will happen in the world, or in what kind of a world our great-grandchildren will live in if all the developing world country people would like to live. The people now in Korea, what will happen? Our great-grandchildren will suffer from much terrible environmental problem, climate change, global warming, and so on. So we, in the profession of green business, we should be careful, and we should try hard to make them happier or safer. And what should we do? And my concern is, if we do not plan and design correctly the green wall, green roof, we may just transfer the emission of carbon from here to there. For example, if I make much money with the green roof, or if I save much money with the green wall, saving energy bill, and then I use the money for nicer, bigger car, or living in much bigger house, emitting much more carbon, then our grandchildren would not be happier. They may blame us. So we should be very careful, and we should do our job very correct. Thank you very much.
Is Mr. Stephen W. Peck, Green Roof professional. He's an honorary American Society of Landscape Architects. He has a degree in political science and politics from McGill University. Stephen's authored and co-authored numerous reports on the topics of sustainable communities, industrial ecology, environmental technology, innovation and transfer, green roof, and infrastructure design, policy and research. He's also the Secretary for the World Green Infrastructure Network and founder of Green Roofs for Healthy Cities. of which he's president. Thank you, Stephen. Please give it up for Stephen Peck.
Please give it up for Matt Dillon, who took it upon himself to organize this fantastic conference. Well, I'm tempted to scrap my entire presentation and talk about happiness. And there is a contradiction, I think, in the presentation that I just saw from the honorable gentleman from Korea. And that is, he was talking about how, you know, happiness was generally flatlining. But when I saw all that underwear, I thought I saw happiness actually going up. So I'm still trying to think about that, ponder that. But you actually make a lot of very important points. You know, in a resource-constrained world, we really need desperately to figure out how to live with a smaller ecological footprint. I mean, that's fairly well understood by anybody working in environmental domain. And one of the reasons I have spent the last 15 years of my life working to develop the green roof industry in North America is because I believe that in the building industry in particular, because of the nature of the building industry and its ability to innovate with new products because of all the creative people that work in the building industry, that we actually have an opportunity before us in this sector as compared to other sectors to move towards a position in which when we build a new building, if we have to build a new building or we retrofit an existing building, we can do so in a manner that it actually gives back more than it takes, or it's restorative or regenerative in its nature. And you know, Australians' 6-star program, as laudable as it may be, isn't going to get us there. The U.S. Green Building Platinum certification, their highest ranking, isn't going to get us there. There is a green building certification program, accreditation program that exists. It's called the Living Building Challenge. You can search it on the internet. That is all about building buildings that are inherently restorative in their nature. And by that I mean they generate their own energy and maybe even produce energy, that renewable energy for the grid. They're not connected to the water and wastewater system. They have a high degree of material sensitivity. They don't use a lot of materials that are known to contain contaminants. So there's a thing called red list. They're designed to have a great amount of biophilic benefits for the occupants of the building and the people that dwell around it. They're required to produce food. They're required to preserve biodiversity. And so I say all of this because that really is the cutting edge of the green building movement, the Living Building Challenge. And green roofs and walls are exceptionally well positioned to contribute in many ways to achieving this lofty goal of restorative buildings. I think in fact there's only right now approximately 6 or 7 buildings in the world that have been able to meet the very, very stringent requirements of the Living Building Challenge. So I say that in part in response to the comments we just had a moment ago. What I'd like to talk to you a little bit about today is trying to think about existing neighborhoods and what might be done to retrofit existing neighborhoods, and how do we push out the work that we're doing, the knowledge and expertise that we have. We come together and we share, and it's sort of like a big love-in, right? It's an international love-in of people working on green roofs and walls, and it's always very fantastic to recharge your batteries, even if you've traveled 26 hours on a plane, which is not very sustainable if you think about it, to get here. It's still very good to find out what's happening in Korea and Singapore. But everybody here in this room, in their own particular context, has a sphere of influence. Some people have larger spheres of influence. Other people have smaller spheres of influence, right? And we have to figure out ways, and Scott talked about this in his presentation at the opening plenary, we have to figure out ways of scaling up, significantly scaling up this activity. It's not enough to be measuring green roof and wall implementation in thousands of square meters. We need to be measuring green roof and wall installation in thousands of square miles. And that's partly what I've been struggling with in the work that I've been doing at Green Roofs for Healthy Cities with many of my colleagues. And we've developed something that I want to share with you. And there is no underwear in this presentation, just in case you were wondering. And there is no way that this presentation is going to move forward. There we go. Oh, I forgot I was down under, so right is left and left is right. There we go. So just a little bit about Green Roofs for Healthy Cities. Our mission, world domination. Really, we want to green in as many walls and roofs as we can across North America. If you haven't heard already, we are having a conference a month from now in Nashville. We're going down to Nashville, Tennessee to have our 12th annual Green Roof and Wall Conference. Should be a good time. And we're focused on water, because water is so fundamentally important to life and our ability to have green buildings. For those of you who are looking for more information, the Living Architecture Monitor is available online at this URL here. And for those of you who are in the research field, we've established the Journal of Living Architecture, which is a multitude of academics that do peer review the best of the best scientific literature that's being produced around the world, in English anyways, is profiled in the Living Architecture Journal. We're developing course material online and market transformation. So my challenge to all of you, and the challenge I hold for myself, is how do we transform the market? There are many, many different ways to do that, right? You can teach students, you can do research, you can grow the products and services that we need to implement these technologies. And we were sitting around and chatting, one of my colleagues and myself, a little while ago, when we were talking about infrastructure, and we were remarking about how much money federal governments in particular spend on infrastructure, particularly if the economy starts to go south. They kind of prime the pump, and they start spending billions of dollars, and all of a sudden we have new roads and bridges, and we get some skating rinks that get built. At least in Canada, we get skating rinks that get built. Here we get beaches filled with sand, additional sand after the last storm. But what would we do if we had $1 billion to spend, $1 billion on green infrastructure? What would we do? Well, first of all, what does $1 billion get you in terms of green infrastructure? I was thinking about that, so I did a little bit of research, and I found out $1 billion will get you anywhere from 6 to 250 kilometers of highway, depending on how complicated it is, how many bridges you have to build, how many rocks you have to blast, or whatever. But that's about what $1 billion. Or if we want to go and think about the military, $1 billion is about what we would spend over the life cycle of one F-35 jet fighter. Not very much, really, for $1 billion if you think about it. Or we recently had the G20 summit in my hometown of Toronto. We spent $1 billion in security for the G20 summit to have all the world leaders come to Toronto for a fabulous photo op. $1 billion was spent on that. So, people that work in landscape architecture or architecture, we don't think about these terms, $1 billion. And I was talking to Raphael from San Francisco. He was telling me that he had asked us daylighting for his senior managers at the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. They said, how much money do you need to daylight that stream? He said, $15 million. He said, $15 million I need. And they said, really? Now he thought they meant, really that much, $15 million? But really what they meant was really only $15 million, right? Because we don't think in these big terms, right? Like $1 billion. But what if we did? What if we really started thinking about green infrastructure in big terms? 45% canopy coverage, 50% canopy coverage. What would happen? And one of the reasons that I've been thinking about this is because in the United States, certain stormwater utilities and cities like Philadelphia is thinking very hard about this because they have huge problems with stormwater. And so they're looking, and they know the gray infrastructure is 3 to 4 times more expensive to build the pipes and the tunnels to manage stormwater. And there's a regulatory requirement under the Clean Water Act for them to clean up the stormwater. And they're looking to green infrastructure to solve a lot of these problems, and they're talking about spending $2.5 billion over the next 20 years. So, if you had $1 billion, imagine. Maybe you'd be happier, maybe you wouldn't be happier. I'd be a lot happier if I had $1 billion. But exactly how would I spend it? What would my community look like if I invested that much money? How many jobs could I create? What kind of return on investment might there be for me? What would the benefits be? What would the costs be? I mean, this is the scale at which we invest in gray infrastructure often, is in billion-dollar scale. So we started to ask these questions, and we realized we really didn't have very many answers, because we're not traditionally, we think about projects, all the nice projects, but we don't think about this at a truly aggregate infrastructure scale. So the goals of this pilot project, which was funded by the foundation, the George Frederick Metcalf Foundation, was to try to create some compelling plans of green infrastructure applications in 4 or 5 different communities for 2 or 3 different sites in each community. And very different communities. Communities that were post-industrial redeveloping, communities that were rapidly developing, some were struggling, large ones, small ones, right? Not just the big cities. And to engage individuals in each of those communities to generate a better understanding of what the costs and benefits of green infrastructure, massive green infrastructure investment might be, to pull together both the design part of the picture at the aggregate scale and the analytical part to create a vision that communities could pick up and run with, politicians, advocates, professionals. What would it mean? So this was basically the idea of the project. There are 2 basic elements to this project that we had to develop. The first is the cost-benefit matrix. So we wanted to understand the costs and benefits of a customized approach to green infrastructure development. And we wanted to do it in a way, at an aggregate scale, at a big picture scale, so that we have approximate understanding of what would happen. You know, if you're going to spend $1 billion, 10 million here or there, doesn't matter very much. Even 25, 30 million, doesn't matter, right? But at a big infrastructure scale, we wanted to do cost-benefit analysis. At a project-specific scale, you have to do, obviously, more detailed design work and analysis and so forth, and specifications and costing, but this is big picture. So that was one thing, is to develop a tool that would enable us to do this. And the second thing was to have a design charrette. So we took these areas. This is a section of the city of Toronto. It's about 10 blocks. You can see there's a transportation corridor. There's a white roof. There's large parking areas. You can see in the bottom here a residential section. So we wanted to go in and work on transforming existing places. So it's not a hypothetical from that perspective. We're really going to go in and do that. So we work with the city planners in 4 or 5 of these cities, and we work with the local design professionals, and we held a charrette where we came together for the day. We broke into groups, we looked at all the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities at each of these sites, and we developed plans for intensive green infrastructure development. And so you can see in this particular case, there's been a significant greening, an enhancement of various aspects of the community with green infrastructure. So those are the 2 major elements that are part of this. The cost-benefit matrix is really an analytical tool. It's in the form of an Excel spreadsheet. And what we did is we had to, in order to get a handle on this, we had to figure out what the costs and benefits would be for 15 generic green infrastructure types. Now, as you all know, there's an infinite number of approaches to green infrastructure. There's an infinite number, practically, of contexts, of products. So we decided in order to do this, we had to have 15 standardized types. And then we went to the literature. We did an extensive literature review to try to understand what the benefits of and costs of each of those were. And then we put it into a matrix so that we could correlate the area with the costs and benefits analysis, and in order to provide a 1, 5, 25, and 50-year return on investment. Now, this is the method that we used. It's pretty complicated, but basically it starts off with identifying 15 generic green infrastructure types. Then we looked at the exhausted list of benefits and the data on the benefits. And then we looked at how those benefits had been monetized. You know, what is a liter of stormwater worth in Sydney or Washington, D.C., or Portland, Oregon, or Seoul, South Korea? You know, if a green roof's going to hold a liter of stormwater, what's it worth? The monetization, right, of these benefits, which is very difficult in some cases to do. And then we pulled it all together into an evaluation of what the range of impact. So, you know, you can have some green roofs will hold more stormwater, like an extensive green roof will hold less, an intensive green roof will hold more, and so on. So we looked at the literature to figure out what the ranges were. And we used ranges like high, medium, and low ranges to determine what the potential spectrum of costs and benefits would be, because there's no way that we could be specific about it. There's just too many variables at play in terms of performance and in terms of monetization, so we created a range, high, medium, and low. And then we went and we had our green infrastructure charrette, and we told the people in the green infrastructure charrette that they had 15 generic types of green infrastructure that they were able to apply to their community they were working on. And they had to design it and tell us how many square meters of each type of green infrastructure they were proposing to put into their particular site. And when we had a measure of the area of each type of green infrastructure, we can then take that measure and apply that value into the green infrastructure cost-benefit matrix to generate a cost-benefit analysis. So how many people are still with me? I apologize. I'm not going to throw too many numbers at you, but anyways, numbers. It's a little bit, happy to talk about it after. I tried to explain it quickly. But that's basically the method that we have developed. It's quite innovative, I believe. So what do we mean by green infrastructure? We're not talking about solar panels. This came out a lot. What about solar panels? What about bike lanes? What about geothermal systems? They're all fine and dandy, and they can be part of the design work that's going on, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about green infrastructure, living systems, right? Which is a little bit different from living architecture, which is about living systems working in tandem with buildings, organic and inorganic systems coming together. So we have urban forests are part of what we were looking at, whether or not they're on a building or not. So here are the 15 generic types of green infrastructure that we used to develop the program. Maybe the terminology is a little different where you are, but essentially we identified all of these as sort of distinct elements. Trees were particularly problematic because of the variance in performance and cost. Trees are very wide in terms of their cost and performance, so we did small, medium, and large trees, and we measured the canopy area of the trees to determine what the performance characteristics were. So you know this, the extensive green roof, intensive green roof, green facades are differentiated from living walls. We have an interior living wall application. We have an exterior living wall application. We don't do many of these in the colder climates. We have the small, medium, and large trees. We have, and then we put all this information down into a spreadsheet that can be customized by the individuals in the community. So it's not like the big brother is coming down and saying, hey, you guys in, Adelaide, here's how it's going to be. It's, hey, you guys in Adelaide, do you have any data that you would like to use about costs and benefits from your community and your climate and weather context that you would like to build in? Because we can customize this tool to any high, medium, low. We could do it really simplistically. If you've got data, we can put your data in. We're not saying that's the way it is. We're saying here's a tool that you can use to figure out what works for you. Because at the end of the day, we want the people in Adelaide to run with this tool and to put the infrastructure investment in place. So they have to believe in it, right? They have to own it and believe in it. So it's not a top-down type of thing. We understand how it's all going to be. It's a tool that's very flexible and can be modified accordingly. So here are the costs and benefits that we have in the green infrastructure matrix, where we've identified high, medium, and low values. Now, is anything missing? Happiness isn't in there, right? How can you put a value on happiness? Well, I know if I drink 2 or 3 beers, I'm pretty happy. If I drink 7 or 8 beers, maybe not so happy the next day. Matt, maybe we'll have a few beers after it's all said and done. These are the ones that we felt confident that there was enough literature that we could actually express the costs and benefits in monetary terms. Health and well-being, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I'm not sure we're ever going to be able to monetize happiness. There might be some ways to get around it, but we do have annual maintenance costs per square meter for all of these, and we do have annual the first-time capital costs, and we have developed a lot of them, a lot of the other the values. And it's not, we're still working on this. This tool does still require a lot of work. So total capital amount invested and the annual maintenance cost, for which people are very happy about this. If you go to to policymakers, or you go into engineering departments, they want to know, what are the performance benefits? If we doubled the urban canopy, what would the performance benefits be? If we doubled the urban forest canopy, how much would it cost? How many jobs would get created? So we're really trying to answer a lot of these questions with this tool in a way that can be customized. So the one-time capital cost is in there. Many of the maintenance costs are more on the for green roofs, or on the private side and public side. So this came out as we were doing this project, is people saying, well, what's public and what's private? And the tool is actually, we built it so it can be flexible. So if the city is going to pay $10 a square foot to implement green roofs up to $100,000 per project or whatever, we can build that into the tool. And then the maintenance costs for that private green roof get borne by the private building owner. So there is some flexibility in that regard. Maintenance, again, there's a range of values here. So how do we monetize these values? How do we take that liter of stormwater and determine what it's worth, right, in market terms? Well, there's different ways. You can use market-based research, where you look at the value of something. So we would ask, how much does it cost on average to build a green roof or plant a tree? And we go to the literature and we find out there's a range of costs, right? But for a lot of these benefits, there aren't market-based costs. There are non-market-based methodologies you have to use, like hedonic pricing. So with hedonic pricing, what you do is you take 2 buildings that are very, very similar, right? And you have to have a database of many, many buildings. You have one building that's beside the park, a big park, and an identical building that's 10 minutes from a park, no green space around it, identical buildings. And you do a statistical analysis, and you can determine, that's how we determine that buildings beside parks could be anywhere from 5 to 30% more valuable property value than buildings far away from parks. And it just so happens, if you think about it, where do all the rich people live? In cities. Generally, the rich people live in well-greened, well-treed, well-serviced areas for parks, and it's the poorer people, right, in cities that live in the areas which are like concrete jungles. So the replacement value cost is if you had to replace something, some functionality that the green roof is performing. Let's say it's protecting a rare species, and it can be protected on top of a roof. If you had to buy the land to protect that species, then that would be an example of replacement value cost. Willingness to pay is about surveys that you do to ask people, what would you pay if you could have access to a park, or what would you pay if the air was cleaner, and so on. They're like, that's another research method. And then avoided cost is when you do something like, hey, if we cover 50% of the city with green roofs, we don't have to spend $3 billion on a big cistern or a tunnel to hold all our contaminated stormwater. Or maybe we only have to spend $1.5 billion on a big tunnel. The other money we could put into green roofs because we're going to hold the stormwater on the roof. So that's an avoided cost type. Or air quality, it might be, if you can remove pollutants from the air using vegetation, rather than putting scrubbers on a coal-fired generating station, which are very expensive. That's another way of estimating avoided costs. So through our research, we're using a variety of these different methods that are built into the cost-benefit matrix from different studies to put a monetary value on the ecosystem services, right, that green infrastructure provides. Is anybody still with me? Is there any economists here at all? One? Okay, good. We'll talk afterwards. You can tear the whole thing apart. It'll be great. So we did high, medium, and low values because, again, there are many variables at play here, right? There are many variables in terms of the costs of green roofs or rain gardens. And there are many variables in terms of the performance of these systems, the ecosystem services, and there are variables with respect to what their monetary value is. So we create ranges, and the more variables they are, the greater the range in values from high, medium, and low, and the fewer variables are, the narrower the range, right? So we have different ranges. Some of them are dollar value based ranges. Some of them have to do with job years of employment because we have calculated the amount of employment that will result. And the other ones are performance-based, biophysical things like how much stormwater gets retained. So there are different ranges for different types of green infrastructure. How much time have I got left, Matt? 12 minutes? Couple hours? No. Every year I get up and I talk about, I'm the only guy talking about economics every year. You start throwing tomatoes right now if you want. Anyways, property value, I have lots of these values. There's a number of slides here with values. I'm not going to speak to them all. If you guys want to have access to this information, we're going to make it available online. We're going to publish the study and everything, and you can take a look at it. You don't have to scramble. We'll work something out afterwards. But one of the things about property value increases, studies have shown that those rich properties that surround the park, right, are worth more money. And because they're worth more money, they generate more tax revenue. So if a city invests in green infrastructure by putting in direct payments or subsidies or tax or regulatory, whatever it is, and the value of those properties will go up, and over time, so will the tax revenue. So the tax man likes green infrastructure, at least when the money's coming in. Habitat, biodiversity creation has been a very difficult one to nail down. It's very hard to put an economic value on like the services of pollinators and so forth. Stormwater management, there are many different methods available for doing that. Air quality, greenhouse gas sequestration. So we are able, forests in particular are able, urban forests are very good woody plants at sequestering CO2. In many communities, they actually harvest the urban forest, and there's a net zero CO2 impact there. Urban heat island, we have not even really begun to reduce the urban heat island except for a couple of cities around the world. Huge potential benefits there. And then job creation from both capital investment and from ongoing maintenance is built in. If your clients don't want to maintain a green roof or wall, let me give you a really good piece of advice. Don't build it. Really. You do the industry a disservice if you do. There's way too many green infrastructure projects being built without maintenance plans, without financing for maintenance, without training for maintenance. It's bad for our industry globally because we get failures and they're going to be coming back at you 2 years from now or a year from now, and the costs will go up significantly. So if they don't want to maintain it, please don't build it. And then urban food production, which has a whole bunch of cascading benefits. We were able to actually calculate how much urban food could be produced from things like the urban forest and green roofs and walls and so forth. So there are some values for habitat in terms of dollars per square meter. Stormwater management, there's a wide range. It really depends on what's happening in the community and what's being planned in terms of stormwater management. There's lots of different ways of methods of calculating it, but you really do have to put a value on stormwater if you want to get serious about dealing with it, right? You have to monetize that, or you have to bring in regulations, which is another way of monetizing it. So we've calculated values for ozone, nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, PM10. So PM10 is 10, for example, a big issue. PM10, small particulate matter, is valued at $5.13 a pound, and VOCs and BVOCs. So again, there is literature out there that puts values on all of these aspects. There's your greenhouse gas sequestration benefits, the value of carbon, ranging anywhere from $36 a ton to $52 a ton. Reduction in the urban heat island, $2.05 47 cents per meter squared, according to the U.S. General Services Administration, a study that was done by Arup Engineering. Building energy benefits, job creation's an exciting one. The politicians want to know. You know, a lot of the times when we build gray infrastructure, it's very technology and material intensive, especially material intensive, right? So there's a higher proportion of money that goes into materials relative to labor. But green roofs and walls are much more labor intensive. So we get more job bang for our buck out of green infrastructure typically than we do gray infrastructure, which is a really good asset when you're trying to convince politicians that we need a program to raise the level of employment in inner cities and so forth. Almost done. Food is, there's a wide range of potential opportunities to produce food and for different types of green infrastructure. There's high, medium, and low yield values. So we went to the cities and we said, hey, look, you know, we've got all these values, we've done all this research, we're not expecting you to be experts, but you can customize this again with your own values. There's a basic level of customization, which is just sort of go down the middle, pick the middle value every time. Or you can tweak the values or maybe even add some more values. And what we found with all the cities that we work with is there's not a great level of understanding at the local government level. They don't really know what a liter of stormwater costs. They don't really have a handle on a lot of the costs that they face when they're dealing with green infrastructure. So there's some challenges there in terms of engaging with them in terms of an exercise to customize the economic part of this project. So here's one example I'm going to share really quickly before I wrap up. This is an existing site. It's in a community called Vaughan. It's rapidly developing. It's about an hour north of the city of Toronto. There's a little, you can see there's a pond in the middle of it. So this was sort of the concept, the early conceptual work that had been done with high-rises. So big natural pond here. They want to put some big towers and retail around here. This is sort of what we were dealing with. It's a historic pond in the town. Some major roads here, as you can see. And this is what they came up with. We had a number of architects, landscape architects. We had planners from the city, about 40 people per charrette, 30 to 40 people on their own volunteer time came. And they because they care about the place that they live, they invested the time and the energy, and this is what they came up with. So they put the circular area here, opened up viewscapes to the pond. They put a green roof over here. They put a greater setback between the roadway. The buildings are still there. They stepped the buildings down towards a park area around. Just a beautiful piece of work. Group of people working together. And they had to fill out a form that said how much green infrastructure. We didn't tell them what to do, whatever. This is just coming out of their creativity and their assessment of the site. And they filled out these forms, and then they basically identified for us how much GI, green infrastructure, what the areas were. So all the maps were to scale, okay? The maps were all to scale so they could calculate how much green infrastructure they put in. And this is the critical stuff that we need, right, from them to be able to do the cost-benefit analysis. And then from that, we were able to work out the capital costs, the average maintenance costs for each type of green infrastructure for the whole project. So in sum, this particular team came up with 39,870 meters squared of green infrastructure that they could apply to this particular site, which is undergoing development. The estimated aggregate cost would be around $6 million in capital to build, about $1.5 million to maintain every year, and the 50-year public return on investment is in the order of $19 million. And so this, we're hoping, is going to be transformative, because we now have you know, we need to get all the design experts in to develop the individual parcels and so forth, but we now have an opportunity to really put some numbers together on a vision of a place that came from the community, right? We didn't come down and design this, the community designed this. People, stakeholders in Vaughan designed this. Very exciting. So in conclusion, this cost-benefit tool, it's not perfect. We need to do a lot more work on it. But what we think is really exciting about this project is we've been able to engage the community in a visioning process about how it could look if they invested some coin, some dollars, not $1 billion in any of these cases. No one came close to $1 billion. But if they invested money, and what the benefits would be. So it's a very educational process. It gives them something to sink their teeth into. It's already changed the planning for a number of these sites, just the exercise that we went through. And it has great opportunities, I think, in the future. We're applying for funding to roll this out to 15 more cities, to put more time and energy into fine-tuning the green infrastructure cost-benefit matrix. So in summary, ladies and gentlemen, we need to think big. We really need to start thinking big. Infrastructure big, right? The way the gray infrastructure guys do, the way the military planners do, right? We spend collectively as a society billions of dollars on all this crazy stuff. We need to grab the bull by the horn, get some Australian swagger, right? And we got to go out there and fight for some resources. So I leave you with this thought. It's difficult to say what is impossible. For the dream of yesterday is the hope of today and the reality of tomorrow. So let us all engage in this dream of a better world, of a world we can be happy and sustainable. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephen. I mean, we often talk about the environmental, social, and economic benefits, and you know, when people say, what are the economic benefits, people usually just end up silent. So it's great to know the facts and figures. I think the Dalai Lama actually generates happiness while he meditates, and they monitor that. So maybe we can start monitoring people like the Tao. And did you know, was it full moon last night? A blood moon, casting a shadow on the moon. Talk to Francesca, she knows all about that. The next speaker, Linda Velazquez, is also a member of American Society of Landscape Architects, Green Roof professional, lead professional. She's founder, publisher, editor of greenroofs.com, which was in 1999, and writes and reports extensively about green roofs, living architecture. She holds a Bachelor of Landscape Architecture from the University of Georgia. And greenroofs.com is an internet news media organization, the International Green Roof Industry Portal. Please welcome Linda to the stage for the...
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I have to say it's been an awesome time here in Sydney with my husband Aramis, my daughter Anjali. We've spent some great time here, and we're really looking forward to some more over the weekend. Before I begin, I would like to thank Green Roofs Australasia, in particular Matt Dillon, who's leaving. Thanks, Matt, for inviting me to speak and share the 2014 Top 10 list. Now, we're in our 8th year of compiling this top 10 list with Haven Keir. She's our design editor, and we searched the globe high and low for those unique, innovative, avant-garde projects that are just going to get you, out there and inspired to go and design bigger and better projects. So it's highly subjective. It's our vision of what the top 10 should be. And we invite you to join us on this fun and fast-paced journey throughout the green architecture world. A little bit about greenroofs.com in case you don't know about us. We're the International Green Roof Industries resource and online information portal. We're all about people, projects, news, upcoming events, We have about 15 contributing editors now. I blog in the Sky Gardens blog, all kinds of stuff. We also have the Green Roof Projects database and Greenwall Projects database. And we currently have about 1,600 projects and counting. And we do a project of the week, which is pretty fun, pretty popular. We've been putting on the Green Roofs and Walls of the World Virtual Summit for a couple of years now. First time in 2011, the second one was in 2013, along with the WGIN, the World Green Infrastructure Network. And we're gonna have one in 2015. So, as usual, before I get into the real thing, I always start off with a few projects for some reason or another just didn't quite make it into the 2014 list. So here we have a little art project that perhaps looks like it, it would be a great do-it-yourself green wall project, right? But no, it's actually a living moss carpet bathroom. So this rug just, absorbs the drops off your bathtub, and it's pretty cool. I would consider it like a do-it-yourself greening, but really it's on the floor. So if they can figure out how to put this thing on a wall, maybe it'll make our list next year. Next, we have these cute, rugged Norwegian roofs in this wonderful landscape. So this tiny green roof shed is inspiring to look at, but I think it also inspires its neighbor with some major maintenance issues. I think a root barrier would have gone a long way here. So, to get back to the real thing, number 10, as usual, is our client-specific boutique green roofs and green walls category for those unique projects that are just too out of the box to fit into their own category. The forum. Here we have a roof that merges with the parking lot design. That's what the client wanted on Jeju Island in South Korea. So it's a multi-purpose hall that's submerged into the Nine Bridges golf course. And they've integrated the stone seating on the green roof that meets the grade, and then you can see how it matches the curbs of the actual parking lot below. The Perez Art Museum in Miami by Patrick Blanc, we saw this yesterday, gives the illusion that the 200,000 square foot museum is embedded within a park. And it consists of these 67 hanging vertical garden tubes. The Amager Resource Center in Copenhagen, the smoke rings visualize CO2 output on heat and power plant, and it's also an artificial ski slope. Green roof, of course. So the architects asked, how do you take the ultimate symbol of work, production, and pollution and turn it into something playful? Well, this waste-to-energy plant in Mountain and Park has a 60 megawatt power station that is fueled by the city's garbage. So the cool thing about this is the smokestack actually puffs ring when 1 ton of fossil CO2 has been released. The ski slope has 15 runs and forest areas for biking and hiking. And the brick facades are actually planters, which when fully grown in, it'll look like a mountain by big. Portland Expo Center green wall, designed specifically for vertical stormwater management. It was actually just finished last week. It's designed to be scalable, so to be used in multiple applications. Consists of 12 aluminum troughs with native Oregon plants. And the cool thing is the runoff flows via gravity. There's no pumps at all to circulate the water. Edificio Green in Medellin, Colombia, is an iconic green urban heights project. The residents wanted something that they could have a signature of their own, for their, it's a high, luxury apartment building. So it's 300 feet tall, 92 meters. Here you can see some of the views. And the other good thing is that the residents can see the wall from their balconies. The USA Pavilion at Expo Milano 2012, the theme is American Food 2.0, United to Feed the Planet. So this particular design facilitates conversation about the U.S. role in the global food system. It consists of a vertical farm, rainwater irrigation, and PVs. It also has regional food trucks and expansive boardwalk for people to walk through and see all this cool stuff. How about the Earth Scraper in Mexico City? So what do you do when you can't build up? Well, the only way then is to build down. This is an underground glass skyscraper which solves the 8-story height restriction in Mexico City with this upside-down 65-story pyramid. Remember, some of these are conceptual. Hey, it could be done. So the center is hollowed out so that every floor can have natural light and ventilation. And these tubes are actually pedestrian walkways. Number 9, the Facebook effect, the influence of online and social media. So everybody's heard of Kickstarter to get funds for your business, your ideas. Well, Brooklyn Grange Rooftop Farm started their industry like this at the at the Standard Motor Products building in Queens, but it's financed via a combo of private equity, loans, grassroots fundraising, and Kickstarter.com. So currently, the first farm grows over 50,000 pounds of organically cultivated produce per year. It's pretty awesome. Here's one that combines Facebook and Pinterest. Greeners for Healthy Cities last year had a great community resiliency project contest where they got submissions from across the world, and the idea with the most votes won. And how they did that was they combined the likes and shares on Facebook with the repins and likes on Pinterest. And those who won a delegate pass to Cities Alive 2013. So the winner is from Brazil, and he won with his integrated green roof wastewater recycling system, which is pretty cool, uses earthworms and all kinds of stuff. This is Art Prize in Grand Rapids, the world's largest art competition, where the participants actually register by the phone app to vote for their favorites. This is a project called Back to Eden by Live Wall. And although they didn't win, they were in the top like 25. Here's greenroofs.com on Facebook. We have an annual photo contest called Love the Earth, Plant a Roof or Wall for Earth Day. And we've been doing it for about 4 years now. And it's a popularity contest for favorite pictures chosen by our readers for outstanding living roofs and walls. And these were the selections from this year. And the winner was a green wall from Israel with 729 votes. That's when you really work your network and you get your people to vote for you. This is Indiegogo, another fundraising website, and the company's called Thousands Win in New York. They wanted to increase green space and brew a farm-to-bottle community-supported beer, all in the same entrepreneurial endeavor. Started by this pair of young guys, they developed a super lightweight green roof system that will facilitate the farming of hops, a key ingredient in beer, on Brooklyn rooftops with these vines. And on the online front, the Green Roofs and Walls of the World virtual summits, we have to throw that in there, 2011, 2013, and 2015. Basically, the idea of a virtual summit enhances the conference-going experience, but on a global level with no expense of travel, lodging, and carbon footprint and more. A couple of examples of the videos that we had. We had a combination video, A Tale of Two Hydroponic Living Wall Systems from Canada and Spain. We also had a couple of panel presentations. Here's one, The Sky Parks in the Public Realm, Elevating Greenways and Urban Connectivity. So please join us for 2015. And I already said in 2013, Wigan was our co-partner. We were happy about that. The number 8 position, treatment facilities cleaning up with green. This is the Ellis Creek Water Recycling Facility in Petaluma, California. Produces about 2,200 million gallons of disinfected recycled water annually, working 24/7. All these living roofs are irrigated from tertiary treated stormwater, but just beautiful living roofs. The sewage treatment facility on Aralt Island in France, they needed a way to hide these ugly basins from local residents to gain approval for its installation. And these slopes are pretty major. They go from anywhere from 20 to 60%. Tri-City wastewater treatment in Oregon City. The pollution control plant uses physical, biological, and chemical treatment to clean approximately 8.4 million gallons of wastewater per day. But the roof is what's beautiful. Following the treatment process, the clean water is released into the local river. The Hotchkiss School Biomass Treatment Facility in Connecticut. It's a LEED Gold certified building, part of the school's commitment to becoming a carbon neutral campus by 2020. Of course, the undulating green roofs, they don't hurt. They just add to the whole environment. And the facility provides heating for the school's campus buildings. The Glencourse Water Treatment is in Edinburgh is the country's largest green roof, and it also undulates over the building as well as the water storage tanks, basically effectively creating a new hill for the countryside. And they have power through gravity hydro turbines. The Croton Water Treatment Plant has been ongoing for several years in the Bronx. It started, it stopped, it's underway. It's should be ready in 2015, but it's located 6 stories underneath. State-of-the-art facility will treat much of New York City's drinking supply from their upstate reservoirs. It will be a 9-acre roof, and which will be the USA's largest, and it will be also used as a driving range, known as the Mosholu Golf Course. That'll be interesting. Number 7, green roofs with an edge, or on an edge. This is the Edgeland House in Austin, Texas. The science fiction writer is also the owner, who's enthralled with 21st century human habitation in urban frontiers of abandoned industrial zones. Well, yes, he does sound like a writer, doesn't he? So here you can see the schematics. The design is actually inspired by the Native Americans' pit house vernacular, which is the oldest housing typology in North America. Gotta love that split down the middle. Butterfly Square in Sweden, set to start in 2016. It's a mixed-use town center, which is bisected by this pedestrian promenade. L-shaped buildings resemble open butterfly wings, and the sharply angled green roof hides parking underground. This dwelling in Natura, Spain, the architect says it's minimal intervention in the environment with its cantilevered edge and lawn space. The Tula House on Quadra Island in British Columbia, the home juts 44 feet above the Pacific Ocean. Dramatic asymmetrical edges and disorderly spatial organization meant to reflect the island's many rock ledges and rough terrain. More architecture speak right there. The Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts High Park Pavilion is a 10,000 square foot hyperbolic paraboloid roof that doubles as a campus lawn. They had lots of issues with having to deal with the shear forces, so a steep slope product was engineered to cope with the growing media retention. And the slope varies from 1 in 12 pitch at the landing point to a 3 in 12 slope at the edges. Number 6, celebrate the academics and world culture progressives. Sith E-Tech Ecology Pollution Harvesting Structure. Conceptual, in case you can't figure that one out. It's a master student in London who has taken the BT Tower and is saying that the facade can use an eco-catalytic converter that will capture petrol fumes and convert it into natural gas using both water and sun. They say the telecommunications hub can now be an eco-skyscraper. The biophotovoltaic panel in Catalonia, Spain, is planted with moss, and the panel has a battery to produce energy from the bacteria in soil, which is fed through byproducts from photosynthesis. The self-producing energy system uses bacteria that's fed through the byproducts of plants, converting it to power appliances and electrical devices. Very innovative. Kuwait University K-12 teaching school. What they wanted to show their students was to have direct hands-on engagement at grade and on top of the 350,000 square foot collection of green roofs that they have on campus. Here you can see some of the roofscape programming from different types of butterflies to fields, outdoor classrooms, labs, basically teaching that good stewardship of the land is very important. Even sheep on the roof. The National Center for Civil and Human Rights in Atlanta, Georgia will be LEED Gold certified and consists of this high-performance exterior wall assembly, state-of-the-art environmental control systems, energy-saving features, and of course a massive green roof. It's set to be a gathering place for a congregation of all types of people. The King Abdulaziz Center for World Culture in Saudi Arabia is a current project, and the design is inspired by Saudi Arabia's geology and rock formations that preserve petroleum energy. The facades are stainless steel tubes which are wrapped around the building itself. The center integrates cultural programming and has massive green roofs as well. All right, number 5, sculptural architecture. This is the Nashville Music Center, City Center that we've seen already before, 175,000 square foot undulating green roof with 3 independent sections that were meant to mimic the rolling hills of Tennessee, pitched from 16 to 25%. LEED Gold certified for new construction, and it has a 360,000 gallon rainwater tank. And if you come to Cities Alive next month in Nashville, you'll be able to see some of it. And these are the Blue Angels flying over. Flavors Orchard is in Kunming, Southwest China. It consists of 45 energy-efficient villas, and the Mobius villa forms an endless ribbon articulated around 2 patios. You gotta love these sculptural forms. In plan view, looks really cool. The Phoenix Valley is in China. It's a theater, film, and art center, and they have the canal that is drawn into the site, becoming an active element that carved out from the valley from the green-roofed mountain mass. This creates access to all parts of the center from within the valley. Sejong City in South Korea is a 667-acre plan that weaves a network of green spaces dictated by the contours of the land that were once hilly, now were flattened to make way for as many as 500,000 inhabitants. But all these are green roofs. 6-story height limit within the city center allows the structure's green roof to slope down to the ground in a pedestrian-friendly incline. Number 4, meditation stations, sustainable relaxing and socializing. This is Plaza Delicias Square in Zaragoza. The neighborhood residents needed a public plaza, and a vertical garden plaza solved this lack of green space, and it's 14,000 square feet of greenery using 84 plant species. It's highly used, it's 15 meters high, and the routes actually crisscross like tree branches, and it's meant to symbolize a tree in the city. Lovely gathering place. Red Moon in Morocco, called the bioclimatic groundscaper. Now this is what happens when you have $500 million to spend on presidential rest houses. So basically it's a huge complex of 10,000 square meters that, you know, if you're a president or a major sheik, you can have one of these underground green roofed spaces too. House C in outside of Tokyo, it's extension of gardening, and the couple who live in Tokyo need the occasional getaway, and they built this house with earth ram structures and gardens on top so that they could get back to nature. The Forest Lodge Eco House here in Sydney, the council encouraged a contemporary design to be distinctly 21st century, which resulted in this innovative rooftop, and it has solar tubes, rainwater harvesting, as well as a 7-meter high vertical art gardens and this lovely green roof. The owner, design build person is here. Chris, if you want to talk to him about this, is a very avant-garde project. The Black Tea House in the Czech Republic, I'm not even going to try and say what the name of that city, in 2011. It's here, it's perched on the edge of a pine forest, and the tea house features sliding doors for view of forest and the nearby lake. And you can't really see the green roof too much, but you can see it in the section with the grasses. They used local grasses from around the lake that they planted to blend into its surroundings, and it also keeps the interior of what they call peacefully cool, very zen-like. Number 3, the Green Apple, New York City. I'm going to go through some projects very quickly here. They have a long history now of awesome green roofs. The USPS Morgan Processing and Distribution Center, 109,000 square feet. The Jacob K. Javits Convention Center, almost 300,000 square feet. This is Via Verde, the Greenway in the Bronx. The future of healthy inner city housing. They have integrated PVs, on-site cogeneration, of course green roofs, vegetable gardens, rainwater harvesting, and all types of drought-tolerant vegetation. It's a beautiful project, 40,000 square feet. It's all about community here and getting interactive on the roof. LEED Gold certified, a good mix of middle income as well as low and moderate income rentals. The Empire State Building now has green roofs. There's 4 on them right now. LEED Gold certified with about just over 9,000 square feet of green roofs on the 21st floor east and west, 25th floor, and the 30th floor. This one is on a very shady area, so they had to use a sedum moss system only. This one, 24th floor east, where they had a lot more sun, and they were able to use a greater selection of sedum mats here too. This is the NYC Parks Favre Borough Administration Building. Ever since 2007, they've been offering this working laboratory for green roof design and research. They have 25 systems and probably more by now, covering over 29,000 square feet. But they're looking at soil depth, soil types, modular versus built in place. They have green roofs with solar integrated right there, planters, hydroponic gardens, beehives, very cool. Here's a green wall, the 23-story atrium living wall in Manhattan. It's private, they have security issues, it's a financial institution, they did not want to be giving out their name. But it's on a freestanding wall, which is pretty interesting, and it's an organic tapestry home to almost 12,000 plants. Very pretty. The High Line, of course, is iconic. I won't get into it too much. In New York from 2009, they just finished most of phase 3 right now, the abandoned railroad that's now turned into a 1.5-mile long green roof, done in 3 phases. I'm just going to go through some photos here. These are of the phase 1 and 2. Beautiful plants, stunning to walk. And the High Line phase 3 just opened last month. Very well received. And this is the cool part, the spur. It's named for its former role as the nexus to the Morgan Processing and Distribution Center, which I showed before. And it's a planted amphitheater hovering over West 34th Street. And it should be completed in 2015. Be very cool when it's done. Number 2, the influence of architects and designers taking a leadership role in design. Last year, we inaugurated this category, and we started with Emilio Ambas, Ken Yang, and Tadao Ando. This year, we have Safdie, Blanc, and Calabo. Moshe Safdie Architects calls for reorientation of the way cities are designed, no isolated towers. He's a pioneering 76-year-old Israeli-Canadian who's has famous works across the globe, including the Marina Bay Sands with the Sky Park on top that we saw earlier today. His first work at Habitat 67 in Montreal, which was an experimental modular housing, and it's thriving today. 15 different housing types, all with roof gardens. The Vancouver Public Library is an iconic green roof, one of our early green roofs in North America. It's 28,000 square feet using natives. Sky Habitat, which you also saw, I'll go through. It's a current Singapore project, high-end, high-rise apartments with private gardens, connected by these cool sky bridges with all these activities on every level. Chongqing Xiaomen, I'll try that. In China, the current project, 10 million square feet. It's a mixed-use project, and it meets at the point between the Yangtze and the Jialing rivers, and the design is a prow-like arc of 6 towers representing ancient sails. Here's the restaurant overlooking the peninsula, sky gardens everywhere. The inward-facing balconies meet the amphitheater gardens and park at podium level, and then underneath are 5 levels of different public programs. Golden Dream Bay in China is a high-density residential beachfront area. Private and public sky gardens are here. Gotta love the graphics. So terracing is maximized to allow for sea view terraces at about 50% of the units. And the green roofs are on the parking deck, 15th and 30th floors, and on private stacked units. Now we move on to Patrick Blanc, and we saw beautiful examples from him, but this is the Musée du Quai Branly with all sorts of botanical wonders. The Siam Paragon Shopping Center, they call these hanging fences in this very upscale mall. The Cheminée EHPAD, which is a ventilation chimney in Paris, and you saw pictures of this too, but they're 16-meter high concrete cylinders that they decided to wrap in copper tubes with these vertical sticks, and then they planted them with morning glories to create this floral cascade, which is quite different from his usual work. L'Hôtesse de Beaucourt in Paris, you also saw this. They call it a hymn to biodiversity with 236 different kinds of plants. It's just massive. It's awesome the way it just converts a barren space into this living architecture, tapestry of plants. This is a cool project, Life Marina on Ibiza, and they call it Las Boas. So these spiral boas are iron gabion cages that encase the plants in this very high-end luxury condo development. And these are photos. These are not, this isn't just graphics. It's amazing. All the different climbers are in here, like they're trying to get out, but they look like boas going around the whole place. Vincent Calabo Architecture, visionary eco-utopian Belgian design architect who's inspired by biomimicry. He comes up with these out-of-the-world designs. One of the early ones is the lily pad, self-sufficient floating ecopolis for 50,000 future climate refugees. Conceptual, of course, but through solar, wind, tidal, and biomass, the project would produce its own energy and be able to process CO2 and absorb into its titanium dioxide skin. The coral reef in Port-au-Prince was developed after the major earthquake using shipping containers, and that's disaster relief matrix and plug-in for 1,000 passive homes. And he designed it in these really cool waves of two buildings. The Phasalia navigates rivers throughout Europe, and it's meant to cleanse the water as it travels through. It's a hydraulic network, and its double hull. It filters the fluvial water and purifies the whole thing by its planted roof. The Dragonfly is one of my favorite projects in New York, conceptual. The metabolic farm of 132 floors, 600 meters high, 28 agricultural fields that grows fruit, vegetables, grain, meat, and dairy. Surface area 350,000 meters, based on the wings of a dragonfly, obviously. So this is a true living organism being self-sufficient in water, energy, and biofertilizing. The marina and floating biomarket. This is Bionic Arch in Taiwan, a way to deal with smog with living walls to convert it back into O2. It has 0 carbon emissions, 23 floors. Powered by solar and wind, has bioreactors for water purification, sky gardens throughout. Number 1, finally, right? Vertical garden towers in cities. Biophilia meets avant-garde architecture. This is Jingyi Li in China. It's envisioned as a model for sustainable living cities. 6 neighborhoods with an emphasis on outdoor public spaces and sky gardens. Retail center to have lushly planted 4.5 hectare rooftop garden with walking paths and fine dining. Not for the average person, I'm sure. This is the White Tree. Let me not massacre the language. The White Tree in Montpellier, France, is tree-inspired housing that has created these balconies, roof gardens with views for all. The design rotates like the branches of a tree. It's meant to engage residents directly to their outside environment and to be able to access sunshine, as well as the views. The M6B2 Tower of Biodiversity, Vertical Chameleon, is a current project in Paris, has titanium cladding covered with plants from wild areas 50 meters high. And it is a vertical city resistance. There's problems going on fighting with the local village urbanism for exception to Paris's 37-meter maximum building height restriction. This is a key element for its capacity to regenerate urban biodiversity, as the tower is a tool for free seating. So it argues that it needs the height. It's actually being built, and the vegetal facade of the tower extends over the center of the block to the surrounding buildings. We'll call this the Agora Garden in Taipei, current project. Its lead goal, DNA-inspired sustainable residential tower, 100-meter high photovoltaics and sky gardens. You can see their design influences, 20 inhabited levels of cultivated vertical farm with all kinds of orchards, organic vegetable gardens, aromatic gardens, and other medicinal gardens. It's a unique ecologic landmark, a new symbol of sustainability with a photovoltaic pergola on top. Even the car parks have green walls everywhere. It's a cascade of suspended gardens. Very cool. And I will leave you with One Central Park, which we got to see on Wednesday, and it's truly an amazing, iconic project. Right now, it's the highest green wall in the world at 150 meters high, 64,000 square meters of green. The Sky Garden, 7 kilometers of planters that go around the whole property with the trellises. Here's some stats. You've heard a lot about it. 23 green walls in total, 250 native species, 150 exotics. And we actually went up on the Sky Garden. It was pretty cool. Looking at the heliostat, it has 320 glittering reflectors, 100 meters high. Everybody knows, by Jean Nouvel, PTW Architects, Patrick Blanc, and many more. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Please visit greennews.com to stay on top of the Green Roof and Green Wall world. You can join get our e-newsletter by just signing up on the homepage. If you have any questions, please just email me. Thank you very much.
Hello, Raphael over here. So, Stephen, quick question, because that economics, my bread and butter now. Have you found a department who's really taken hold of this? Because one of the biggest challenges I've seen in the public sector is breaking through people's budgetary requirements of what problems they're slated to solve. And so you're asking people to think interdepartmentally. So have you found a way to translate your tool to adapt to the way bureaucracies work? To make it practical.
Yeah, there is a lot of silo, right? Silo-based approaches. We only deal with stormwater. We only deal with parks. You know, we deal with energy and so on and planning. We work mostly with planning departments, which tend to have a broader view, like a cascading view over a whole bunch of different issues. So I think our focus really is on planning departments, but at the end of the day, you have to have political buy-in, and in each case, we had the mayors of each of the communities, the cities we went to, participate at least initially, in most cases, or counselors. So we really do, you know, require political champions to break down the silos between departments. It is a challenge.
Question again, Stephen, just on the economics and the matrix. Having worked with converting the iTree model from the Northern Hemisphere into being able to be used in the Southern Hemisphere for the urban forestry area, is your model going to be global in in its calculations? And the second part of the question is it online accessible, or is it a case of getting the data and sending the data to you for analysis?
Don't send data, send money.
Well, send Fosters.
You know, send maybe a couple of tankers. You know, is it global? I think some of the concepts could be used globally. I mean, it's set up so that it can be adapted with any kind of data from anywhere, right? So if you have data, it doesn't matter where you are. If you want to plug your data in on a per square meter basis, you can go ahead and do it. You know, but I wouldn't. So it's a framework. It's like an umbrella framework for doing the analysis, as opposed to, so it has maximum flexibility in it. In terms of future development, I mean, we're looking for opportunities to collaborate. I mean, I'd like to be able to put it up. We're hoping to be able to put it up on the web, and make it available for people in any community, anywhere, to input, you know, data on a per square meter basis, which will enable them to figure it out for themselves. But this is only the first year. We haven't even got the final report printed yet, completed, but certainly looking forward to potential partnerships.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess this is a bit of a different question from the ones that are being asked. It's one that I've been asking a few people while I've been here at the conference. And it's you know, relation to sustainability. It is related. I think the children have the future of our world in their hands. And I'd like to ask all of you, if a 7-year-old child came up to you and asked you for the best advice in the world, what would that advice be?
Hello? 7-year-old?
Yeah. Or you
Make for the ice cream shop.
Well, I have a lovely 5-year-old grandson, so what would I tell Nikki? We need to be future-forward thinkers. We need to consider the environment before we act. Whatever building we need to be not only sustainable, but as Stephen was saying, it needs to give back. It needs to be positively producing back to the environment. I think we have major problems with not only the climate issue, which is of course very real, but also population control. Not that I know, you know, how to solve any of these, but I wish general You know, cradle to cradle sustainability was taught in high school. We need to start early with some of the ecological teachings, just the basic, like what Bruce was saying with the water systems. I mean, most of us really don't know how water is processed. Yeah, it rains, and then here it is coming out of our faucet. I think we're just generally lacking in environmental education overall. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Cool, thank you.
For a kid, yes, how? Well, I would say lead a very humble life, decent life first. And then second, it is said that every kid are born with quite huge, the body size bomb with the kid in this world. So I would say shed off that bomb first. The bomb, yeah. The weapon, I mean, in this world, there are so many weapons and explosives, so every kid carry that his or her body size bomb, but when they are born, so shed off that bomb first.
Hi, back to boring numbers. Stephen, I was wondering, in your cost-benefit analysis, how you treated your benefits. Do you model them additively, or do you take into account synergies, number one? And number two, how do you deal with changing benefits over the age and maturity of the roof or wall?
Yeah, both very good questions. No, there's no additive aspect to the analysis. That would introduce another level of complexity that we weren't able to deal with. But we are aware, of course, that you know, the more there's a tendency to, if you have more green infrastructure, then the impacts become greater. And if we really hope to do things like reduce the urban heat island, we need, you know, massive investments in green infrastructure. So no, we didn't deal with that. To your second question, what was the second question again? I didn't answer, but the phosphorus just kicked in.
Second question was, how do you account for changes in benefit provision over the maturity of the development?
Right. Good question. That is most apparent with the urban forest aspect, because trees, as they get more mature, their performance becomes significantly greater. So what we did is we looked at the canopy area, the average canopy of a small, medium, and sized tree, the total canopy area. So that's the measure that we took. And then in the cost-benefit analysis, we used the average length of time it would take for those trees to reach maturity, and that's when the benefits are actually built into the cost-benefit model. Do you understand? For most of the other types of green infrastructure, yeah, there's a growing period for green roofs, but it's really not that significant. That was most significant with the urban forest. I'm sure the iTree gentleman would agree with me over here with that.
So I've got one last quick question for Tong, Mahn. It's Raphael over here. So a lot of this focus is on plants, something that we talk about as biodiversity, but it's sort of a bit of an afterthought. And a lot of what we're talking about for happiness or fulfillment of life, we're talking about building the equivalent of urban forests that are relatively empty aside from humans and plants. And how much can we be fulfilled in a planet where we're replacing, let's say in Singapore, for example, is a great example, some of these old forests with these green facade buildings, but we're losing the birds, the insects, everything that goes along with it. How do you feel that we can be happy if we can't learn to share space?
Well, sharing spaces with the biotic world, I mean, with all the insects, animals, flora, fauna, I would say the town planners, urban designers, architects should first keep the green spines of a place before bringing in bulldozer for building structures there. And then, obviously, I agree with the benefits of the green walls, green roofs there in very highly developed urban areas. But as I mentioned, if we produce more carbon, or we have more bigger carbon footprints, that will not benefit our children. So I think even if we try to have more spaces, greens in the city by building green walls, green roofs, but we should be careful not to produce more carbons. I don't know whether I got the point and I answered the question. But
it goes really into the respect of life, you know, that there's a certain amount of respect we all share for life, but that I think something a lot of people are worried about is greenwashing, that once you put a plan on there that you call it a day, but that you have to make sure that it's an appropriate design, and really it's the question of what problem are you trying to solve. Are you trying to make a concrete look green, or are you actually having it be a shared space with other living things, that you're really trying to have human space be more inclusive of other living things, you know, and relating that to respect and happiness.
Right, sure, yeah. So I was the chair of the Korean Green Roof Association, and I wish to promote the green business in our society also, but my point was simply we better think of the life cycle assessment and should be careful not to produce more carbon simply.
Please thank our speakers, Stephen Peck, Linda Velazquez, and Tong Mahn. The feedback I've been getting through the last 2 days is that the Congress has been very enjoyable, successful, and the mission for Green Roofs Australasia is to disseminate information, i.e. research, case studies, best technology, and best practice. So I think if we delivered that, then we have delivered on our mission. If you are Australian, please consider joining our association as a member. Our prices are very reasonable. We have individuals, students, small companies, large companies. There's details out on the board, or just visit our website, Green Roofs Australasia. This has been a twofold effort. It's been a co-hosting exercise with the World Green Infrastructure Network and with GRA. The main sponsors that I'd like to thank were Horticulture Australia and Business Events Sydney, and the Congress sponsors APTC Australia, SICA, the Hills Bark Blower, and Fighter Green. I'd also like to thank all the exhibitors, special mention to Andreasen's Green, who provided all the plants out in the foyer. Pity they delivered them with no trays. I was running around Bunnings the other day, 20 minutes before we opened this Congress, looking for trays to put underneath the pots, like a complete hysterical madman, and got them. We got them set up. I'd like to thank ICE Australia, our event organisers. They've been tireless in helping us get this to the quality that we really wanted it to be. Tomorrow there's training. I think you heard Jeffrey Bruce speak today. He's doing training workshop 1, and we have Robert Griffith and Rafael Garcia doing workshop 2, and Stephen is doing a policy workshop at UTS. If you are doing the workshop, could you just please go and see Andrea or Rowan at the desk and just pick up the location details and times and the room, etc. So please do that. The what else have we got here? Just a few, nearly finished. Please check that you don't leave any valuables here, or if you lose anything, please just go to the desk and ask. I'd also like to, I'd just like to get the GRA members up here, please, because I think you really should see our board members. Can you just come up for a second? Would be great. Big hand. This is our association. We are the directors. We punch well above our weight. And we've had lots of support from affiliated associations. Zoe Cooper, New Zealand, Rosie Mahoka, Robert Griffith, and Tanya Axel. Please give them... I'd also like to just show you, introduce you to the Wigan members who are also part of the whole support network for this Congress. If you could just please come on. That's new members as well. Stephen and Aslan is our new member from Iran. Yes. Do
you want some help?
Islam, yes. Our new member from Iran. Thank you. Andre, our new member from Colombia. And Dorte Roma, our new member for Scandinavia. Stephen Peck, our secretary. Thank you. Julian Bruce from Spain. Yeah. Francois Lassalle from France. And Jimmy Quasimoto will come to the microphone now and tell you about Nagoya, which is next year. And can we run the video?
Can we sit down?
No.
You can't.
We want to have some Fosters and some Crown Lager. And we've got food.
Until the thing starts, we thank, of course, our Vice President of the organization, Mr. Mert Dillon.
Can we sit down and look at this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we will have some food and drinks out here in the courtyard. Just a few minutes.
End of summer and the beginning of the autumn. It's the best season for sightseeing and walking, trekking, and going to concert and eating autumn harvest, and also best season for attend the Congress. And the Congress will be held in Nagoya. Yeah. Why not Tokyo, Osaka, or Kyoto? Only big reason. One reason, Nagoya is very convenient to approach from anywhere in Japan. Nagoya is surrounded many beautiful spots, surrounded by natural, very beautiful natural landscape and historical heritage and so on. Yeah, it's the middle of the Japanese island, center of the Japanese island, so very easy to access from Tokyo and Osaka and everything, everywhere in Japan. And Nagoya is center of the Japanese island. And of course, the other reason, the most important event was held in Nagoya 10 years ago, World Expo, and that is say the Earth Expo was held. And the meeting, the 10th committee or participant country of biodiversity in United Nations. So the Nagoya is very keen to the biodiversity or environment and other global warming and the lots of environmental problem. The schedule is this. First day, the 13th of October, the board member meeting, and the 14th October, registration and keynote lecture. Keynote lecture, who is the keynote lecturer? Many keynote lecturers here. And Thursday, the 15th, the many presentator is here, present. And fourth day, exhibition. The event and theme, the water management, economic of living, energy, health, technologies, plant vegetation, and the design, and thermal environment, biodiversity, and facility utilization. And sessions, policy, design, research. So you find that, as you know, that the matrix of the session and theme, 10 applied, 3 is 30. You make a 30 small session in there. So your presentation will set in somewhere the 30 presentation. So please give us your theme or abstract in the session until the end of March next year. End of March is next year. And fourth day, excursion. Excursion place is here, but time is short and lift time is very short, and times don't allow me to speak about in detail in excursion place. But yes, National Urban Greenery Fair, Aichi, will be held in 2050, and this is a very big event. And the venue is very wide, park, and many interesting, many kind of trees and shrubs and ponds and many places for the biotope and other place element. And this example is the past urban greenery thing. The town and park designed by flowers and trees and other plants. Very beautiful. And greenery farm exhibit many their new technology and new design. So this is a very exciting event. Optional tour we planned, green roof and green walls in Tokyo or Osaka. I would like to show to you the Tokyo example. Very density green and very beautiful roof garden. And Osaka and Yokohama, you can see the pier of the port. And Osaka is very curious, very wonderful roof garden, and a beautiful private roof garden. And this is a not a wall garden, but three-dimension greening, we say. This is made by the mesh bag and many planters in there, so it's very impressive. This is a very curious building, and 20 years later, the green was climbed the top of the building. I don't understand, and I don't believe that the very impressive building in Osaka. The time is short, so if you'd like to know more information, please come Japan and to attend this this Congress. But homepage of the Congress, we will prepare it as soon as possible. But just now, you can see the Facebook. You can access the Facebook within Nagoya. Please access the Facebook and please give us your opinion and hopes and other information. Please give us. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to you, Nagoya, next year. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that's the World Green Infrastructure Network Congress in Japan next year. You can get details on our website or on the Wigan website. Wigan also have a Facebook page as long as Green Roofs Australasia. And I think that's a wrap. I'd like to thank all the speakers, international guests, delegates, especially you for making this possible, to the AV people, the event organisers, caterers, laissez-faire, Rohan. Take a bow, Rohan. He's my main man. Drove him crazy. If I've forgotten anyone, I apologise. But please join us for drinks and food out in the courtyard. It's daylight saving now in Sydney, so we'll enjoy the weather, have a few drinks, swap stories, plan when we meet next, because now you're all part of a family, the Green family. Thank you.